into the village multiple times, so I've been supporting and interacting with Give Kids the World for several years now, and it's been an honor to be a part of this. Truly an honor. And for this inaugural event, I just want to be here every year from now on.
I have not been to Give Kids the World Village yet, and I can't wait to go. I've heard amazing stories and just, kind of incredible things about the village and all the amazing work that you do. So I can't wait to visit.
Oh, awesome. We love to go there. So.
I remember that you hosted for a panel, was for the Toy Story actors.
Yeah, we had a Toy Story reunion, and proceeds went to Give Kids the World.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually the first reunion of its kind, and it was on Zoom, and it was very surreal and awesome.
It was very entertaining. We went. Did any of you go and see that online? It was great. Fantastic.
So let's start at the beginning. I'm sure one of the most frequently asked questions that you have is, how did you get the role? How did you audition and that process? And so we'll start with Linda.
Okay, that is one of the most frequently asked questions, and it is really interesting actually. At the time, it was just one of many auditions I had that week. It was a time when I was living in Los Angeles. My agents would tell me where to be and what time, and I had a book that I wrote things in because it was a long time ago. I didn't have a computer or a phone to keep track of my appointments. I kept track of them by hand, and I still have those books. I remember seeing one of the entries where I had an Aladdin callback, and I spelled Aladdin wrong. I put it with 2 L's. I was like, oh, I didn't even know how to spell it at this point. And it ended up being such a huge part of my life. My first audition was kind of uneventful. I just went in, recorded a scene, and left. I had gone there with a friend. We carpooled. She had a fancy fax machine, so she had gotten the sides faxed to her the night before, so I read them in the car on the way to the audition. And I didn't hear anything for probably a month. And then every few weeks, after a month later, they said I had a callback. Every few weeks I would go back in, I'd have another callback, and the number of people in the waiting room was shrinking, and the number of people watching the audition was growing. So the pressure was going
It was
up,
like
up.
entertainment version of Survivor.
Exactly, exactly.
Now, when you went to those first auditions, were those at the studio? Were those at like a recording facility? Those are at the studio. Wow.
Mm-hmm. In a little tiny room that was just big enough for a music stand and some pretty simple equipment and the casting director and me. And then as it went on and more people were showing up for my audition, then they moved us to an actual recording studio where there were a bunch of people sitting there.
At what point did you see any of the first art of Jasmine, of the character?
During the process, I started to get a glimpse of the storyboards. I don't remember if I saw the statue, like the white statue.
Maquette.
What is it called?
The maquette?
Yeah, I don't think I saw that until after I got the job, but I definitely saw some storyboards as I was auditioning, more and more. And that was pretty cool. That was really, even if I didn't get the job, I was like, I saw some of this movie that they're making. It's really, really inside stuff.
And John, how about you getting the role?
So fabulous to hear all those insights. I love that. So we have to go back to 1991, and I was 7 years old, and now I'm 36. And it was an open call for kids in the Bay Area, and I think they were, kind of auditioning kids in LA too. And they needed Andy you know, for the first feature-length animated film created with computers at Pixar. And, you know, Pixar staff at that time, there were maybe 20 or 30 on staff, and now there are like 2,000 or 3,000, you know, to give you a sense of the growth of Pixar. But they just said, to the first audition, bring your favorite toy. Bring your favorite toy to the audition. And I brought all my X-Men figures.
Yeah!
That's a toy.
They're a unit.
Yeah, exactly. I think fans will understand, like, that's a toy. You know, you need to bring, you can't just bring Professor X, you need, like, all of them. And so my mom was like, this is not what they said. They said bring one toy. I was like, it is one toy, I'll explain. But they got it. The creative team got it.
That's probably what helped you get the role, was like, no, but really.
They did like that I kind of was like, no, I have to bring all of them. And then, similar to Andy, you know, they just said, okay, we're just gonna record you playing with your toy. That's it. And so I like dumped all the figures out on the ground, and I started creating the voices, and you know, I got really into it, and later they told me, you know, that was Andy, and we just kind of saw Andy come to life in front of us, you know, with all those voices and kind of characterizations and such.
Wow.
And similar to Linda, like, you know, there were 20, 10, 5, 3, 2, and then me, in terms of the, you know, callbacks. Because with the callbacks, we then read from the script, and they started to hear, you know, Andy's potential voice and such.
And being that age, did you feel like how special it was?
You know, I did, in that it was just such a unique kind of project, but I was so little that, and you know, it wasn't, I didn't realize the scale of what it would become. Because it's the first feature-length animated film created with computers. It's kind of like experimental, and then like you see it on a bus, and you're like, oh, okay, it's actually gonna be kind of big, I think, you know. But yeah, at first I didn't have any idea. My family didn't have any idea. I just thought it was a really cool audition, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I love that. Have you gotten to ride Slinky? I just need to know that.
Sorry, did I?
Have you been to Toy Story Land to ride Slinky Dog Dash?
I have.
Right.
Now, was there like an entire cast, like table read at one point, once you'd been cast and all of that, you know, was there that kind of thing for you, Linda?
For us, no, not in the animated feature. We recorded everything individually, and we recorded everything with the people that we were in a scene with. So I did ultimately get to record with the other actors, but we never were all in the room together at once doing a read through of the whole script. Yeah.
But did you do that for the show?
So for the television show, a totally different setup. In the television show, we were all in the room for 4 hours every Tuesday afternoon for 2 years. And I did some of my recording in New York, but when I was in Los Angeles, it was Tuesday afternoons from 2 to 6, the whole cast all together, you know, 10 chairs, 10 music stands, and we did the script from start to finish.
Oh, wow, like straight through.
Straight through. They were maybe 30-page scripts.
Yeah.
But it was a fun experience. Everyone was working together and working off of each other, and the energy of doing it was almost like a play reading, you know, to do the story from the beginning to the end every week. It was a great experience, actually, doing the television series.
And was that a huge adjustment from what you, I mean?
It was very different from filming, from the animated feature. It was just a completely different process. Yeah, same characters, different genie. We had Dan Castellaneta was the genie for the cartoon series.
Yeah, who is Homer Simpson, like
Yes.
Yeah, most famous.
Yeah. And all of his castmates from The Simpsons were guest stars on the Aladdin cartoon series. So we had every voiceover giant guest starring on that show
Wow.
in 2 years. It was really, really cool.
I love that. And John, can you talk to us about what it was like actually making the films and were you
Yeah.
alone or?
Yeah, so similar to Linda, okay.
Don't move.
Similar to Linda, we recorded individually for the most part. The time I really would see the other cast members were at the premieres. There was kind of a cool kind of situation in Toy Story 3 in that I was living in New York and Laurie Metcalf was doing a play on Broadway. And so I was recording there and they would book us back to back. And so we could have a nice Andy's mom, changing of the guard. Like I would have my session and then she would have hers and we would chat for a moment. And that was nice to kind of, and that actually kind of, because then sometimes she would be first and I'd be second, and it actually kind of helped me, especially if I was recording a scene with Andy's mom, because I had just seen her and heard her voice. And so it actually sort of helped.
Like having that in personality.
Yeah, and it's Laurie Metcalf, but it's also, it's her vocal quality and it's,
Yeah.
so it was, that was kind of, I loved when that happened, because, hi, kind of see each other for a minute. And, but then at the premieres, of course, watching the films come together and just being.
So did you first meet some of the other actors like at the premiere?
Yes, yeah, a question I get often is, have you met Tom Hanks? How many times have you met Tom Hanks? And have you met Tim Allen? How many times have you met Tim Allen? And I was lucky enough to meet them at the premieres, and just a kind of sweet moment of like, hi Andy, hi Woody, where it's just like kind of surreal, also, and they're very nice people and very good actors, of course, and kind of how you'd imagine, just really nice, warm.
So,
I think there's a fun story about Lee Unkrich trying to track you down for the third one.
Yes. So the films more or less were in real time, which is unique for films. And I was always a little bit older than Andy, but there was this huge gap between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, and I was in college. And this is almost a lesson, especially for voiceover actors, but I was in class like all day, and so Lee called me, the casting director called me, and I think Lee was on too, and it went to voicemail. And so they just heard my voicemail, and they said, oh good, you can still play Andy.
Hired!
Yes, my voicemail for my cell phone was my audition for so I'm glad it worked. But also they love, continuity, and they want to bring back the same voice actors whenever possible.
yes. And you had some neat family connections to the films as well. Like you grew along with Andy and.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, so at the Toy Story 3 premiere, my mom was there and then my siblings, and my younger sibling was off to college. So it was like it was just like right before she went to college, and then I played Andy, going to college, and then my mom is there, like, bawling. I was just like, oh my gosh, it was very emotional and also meaningful, of course.
I think that was something really meaningful for the fans too, like people about our age experiencing it versus a child getting to continue to enjoy that.
Grow up with the films,
Yeah.
grow up with the characters, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a nice thing about that film for like all generations, because you could connect in some way to either the child or the parent, and as everybody got older, that was nice. What was the moment for both of you that it became real? That you were the voice of Jasmine, that you were the voice of Andy. What was the thing that kind of struck with you?
Well, for me, I didn't really believe I was gonna be the permanent Jasmine until I saw the premiere at El Capitan Theater, and I was like, it is my voice, and I even right up until the movie started, I thought, it's possible someone made a mistake and invited me, and they didn't tell me that they had replaced it. I just, did, because it was a unique situation. I was the first actress to do a princess that didn't sing. It was the first time in history, and I thought, I've said this before, some of you may have heard it, I thought, they know I can't sing, but it's only a matter of time before they figure out that Lea Salonga can talk. I had to make it to the finish line, and I did, and that's when I really thought it was real.
When you were seeing it.
When I was seeing it at the premiere,
With
I said they
witnesses.
cannot take it back now. That's it. It's official.
Linda, I had a question for you about, like that character, and in that moment in time, it was definitely like a girl power era.
Yes.
Did you feel that way, like while you were creating that role?
100%. I was so in sync with it because it is exactly how I was feeling at that age in my life. I was just, coming of age myself. I was living on my own for the first time. I was really active and socially aware, and it was just the first princess that I really felt was capturing that energy, and I connected to it 100%. From the minute I read the character, I knew what she was about, and it felt very relevant to that time and to my life.
I love that.
It's a great question, thank you.
And John, what's a moment for you that made it real, that you are Andy?
Yes, I would say the Toy Story premiere, I was 11 years old, because it took me 4 years to record, it took 10 years to make Toy Story. And I was sitting in the theater and it went dark, and then Andy starts Toy Story. All right, everyone, this is a stick-up. Don't anyone move. That little thing. That part. And it doesn't sound like to say because I was, little. But that starts it, and I kind of turned to my parents. I was like, "Is that me?" Yes, that's you. And I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was kind of like excited and nervous and embarrassed and happy and all these emotions that you feel as an 11-year-old. Watching that.
That self-consciousness is funny. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
As a child, I can imagine.
Well, and also I don't think they told, we recorded it all, but, they can make lots of changes in the editing room. And so I just didn't know that it starts and, oh my gosh, Andy's playing with his toys, and I voiced Andy. Yeah.
I also, if you want to get your phone ready, just in case to record things, I personally wanted to ask this. Are there lines that stand out as very memorable, or that people continue to ask you to say, and would you say?
Well, for me, one that I have fun saying, and you'll remember the scene, I believe this was one of my early audition scenes, where I get to say, "Oh, Father, Raja was just playing with him, weren't you, Raja? You were just playing with that overdressed, self-absorbed Prince Ahmed, weren't you?"
That's fabulous. I think the end of Toy Story 3 is probably my favorite scene that I recorded, and kind of that little monologue about Woody. And you can see my shoes, they're Woody shoes. But not picking favorites, but they're all on my shirt too. But so just the line, now Woody, he's been my pal for as long as I can remember. He's brave like a cowboy should be, and kind and smart.
Everybody cried.
I know.
Yeah,
Well done.
I'm emotional.
Which actually, just on that, and I hear that from a lot of people too, that they just bawled at the end of Toy Story 3, as did I. But in the recording studio with Leon Critch and the producer, what kind of got me there is he said, imagine saying goodbye to the thing you care most about in life. And so it's just like, imagine saying goodbye to the thing you care most about in life. And then just that whole, we had like 2.5 hours to just kind of record that final scene, and so it got to very emotional places, and he was like, this is a goodbye, you know, and all that entails. And so they say like tears in the writer, tears in the reader, because I think I felt emotional, perhaps that translated out.
Definitely.
Didn't expect to cry. And we will have a Q&A at the end, so if you have questions you want to ask, be thinking about it. I was curious for either of you, was there something that you saw the character on that, you know, maybe it was so much notes or some art on something that made you just have a moment like, wow, this is so.
I had one yesterday. I was at the airport in New York, coming down here, and checking in ahead of me was a 3-year-old girl wearing a Princess Jasmine mask. On my same flight, and I said, "Are you going to Disney World?" And she looked at me. She was like, "Yes." And her dad said, "Who are you going to see?" And she said, "Jasmine." And I was like,
You're like, that's right. You have no idea.
the magic had already begun. She hadn't even left New York yet, and she was talking to Jasmine.
Did you tell her?
For a few minutes, and I talked to her brother. He wanted to see animals.
Did you tell her?
I did not.
Someday she'll find us on the
Yeah,
internet.
she'll see this video. So that's that. I think that leads to a question I have. Like, there's that element of preserving the magic that, as cast members, we are, you know, that it is ingrained. So, how do you negotiate that in that instance? You know.
You know, I think I go with my gut. If I think it will add to someone's moment, I will share it. If I think it will be confusing or all about me, then I will not. So it really just is what I'm feeling in that moment and the information I'm getting about the situation in that moment. And I've had many occasions where I have shared for a good reason, and it's always been wonderful to share it, but I have to really feel it. And when I do, I trust that, and I share it, and it's worked out so far.
John, I still want to know if you had something with your character Andy, like a moment, something.
Yes, I would say fan art. My gosh, I wish I had like examples, but I'll try to describe maybe a few. But just to see the creativity of how fans interpret Andy and my connection with Andy, and one comes to mind. There's a local Bay Area artist, and in California, and he kind of takes kind of classic like Disney films and Pixar and just gives it like a very modern look. So it feels like it's right now in terms of his interpretation. And so there's one for Toy Story 3, and it's like a profile of Andy's head, and then everything within the film is within his head. So it's like as if it's just all in his imagination, or it's a dream, and so it's just a very interesting take on, the story and Andy's connection to it, and I have that framed in my house. Just because I look at it, it's like, that is such an interesting perspective. It's so creative,
Yeah.
And he, is maybe a storyboard artist now or something, but, it's so cool to see that, and to see those fresh interpretations, and personal connections and interpretations.
And it makes so much sense for Andy, that particular piece of art, because he's making this really happen. I love it.
Yeah, exactly, and then you're almost like, was it all a dream? No, but okay, but like, it's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's time for the Q&A portion of our proceedings. If you have a question, come on up to the microphone.
Oh, please. I always get nervous that there will be no questions.
Socially distant, as other people, are up on the microphone. So introduce yourself and state your question.
Hello, my name is Michelle. Hello, Linda. Hello, John. Both of you. As a fellow vector, I know you've had many roles in your career. If you could play any other role, Disney or otherwise, who would you want to be? Who do you think would be a tough one?
I would love to play Minnie.
Yeah.
I would love to play Minnie. There was a moment when I was maybe a couple years after I started doing Jasmine. By the way, I always sound like Jasmine, so they won't let me do anything else, not even Crabwalla when we're doing the TV show. But I had my little cousins with me here at Disney World, and we had 2 adjoining rooms, and just for fun, I called one room from the other room and pretended I was Minnie Mouse to my cousin. And I thought she would call me out on it. She was 8, so I thought she would get it, and she just completely got captured by it. And I was like, oh, I can't tell her it's me now. And I never told her. We went to see Minnie, and she was like, I talked to you on the phone earlier.
I think that's a beautiful thing about kids, is like they can drop their suspension of disbelief, like just gone, like.
Yeah.
So thank you for that wonderful question.
Did you have an answer, John?
I'm a little split. I'd say growing up, I would have loved to play Simba. That would have been really fun. And then I also love Peter Pan. I just love that film and that story and those characters. And so, I don't know, someone in that. Like Shmi or.
What's your best off to Neverland?
Off to Neverland. Yeah. Working here. I just play Peter. Yeah, but I just love that world. Thank you. Great question.
Is this thing on? Oh, good. Anyway, how you guys doing? So I have two very short questions. The first one's very simple. What does the word Disney mean to you guys? Like when you hear that word Disney, what comes to mind? Like what feelings? Like what comes to mind? Like,
Magic.
Magic.
Fun.
And John, very quick question for you. When you got cast as Andy, like before you stepped into this whole world of toys and everything, before you became part of this family, did you really think, like, did you ever have a moment where you thought that the toys actually came to life, like when you left the room? Like, did you ever have that in your head somewhere before you stepped into the role, or I'm just curious?
That is such a great question, and I've gotten that from fans before, and I love that question. So, actually, because I was so little, when I started recording Andy in Toy Story, I would kind of, set things up in my room, and then I'd leave, and I'd like do a little crack. I was kind of like, maybe it's true,
And they know something I don't.
Yeah, I actually was like, maybe I'm just gonna test it. So I did test it, and I never saw the move, but yeah.
Yes.
I was influenced by it for sure.
Did you ever think that too, Linda? Did you ever think that toys came to life when you left the room?
I didn't think that, but I always felt like a real connection to my dolls. Like I felt like they existed, even though I didn't really think that they were doing anything when I wasn't there. So it's interesting, like they were very real to me, and I interacted with them in that way, but I think I always knew I was part of it, so I didn't have that same experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, how are you? My name is Rachel. This question is for Ms. Larkin. I was wondering if you could give us some kind of a glimpse into what it was like working with Rom Williams.
Thank you for that question. It's my favorite question to answer. And Rachel, by the way, has the coolest denim jacket from the 1992 tour with the genie on the back. Robin Williams, I have grown up watching him on television. I was a huge fan. He was one of my idols. And I was really nervous to meet him. I was nervous to work with him. And he was so disarming. I walked into the room and he was the gentlest, kindest human being. And made me and Scott, who is Aladdin, both of us feel immediately comfortable, and then made us laugh harder than we've ever laughed, because he was improvising a lot of what he was saying, and a lot of it no one's ever going to hear. And we had to not ruin the takes, so we had to laugh but not make a sound. So it was a truly unique recording experience. Then over the next 20 years, I had many subsequent interactions with him, doing press tours, living in New York. He was, part of the community of theater actors there, and he always made me feel very special every time I saw him. So it was a wonderful experience to get to know him. He's one of those situations where meeting your heroes is not a disappointment. In that case, it made me love and appreciate him even more.
Before becoming Andy and Jasmine, was it your dream to become an actor?
Well, what was your dream at 7 years old?
I know. That is such a great question. Toy Story for me was probably my third job, acting. I think I did one commercial for Chevron, and then another commercial for Toaster Strudel or something, and then Andy. So I had just kind of started acting, and I was just having a lot of fun with it. Growing up, I sort of thought I might become a doctor, because I just was sort of drawn to that field. I didn't end up becoming a doctor, but that kind of helping others, and healing others was interesting to me and appealing to me. But then I really kind of delved into voiceover, and perhaps can help others and connect with others that way. What about you?
I was a dancer, so I did not know I was going to fall in love with acting. I came at it from a different direction. But being a dancer opened a lot of doors for me and opened a lot of opportunities, and I think, when something presents itself to you in life, go with it. It just felt like this was where I was meant to go, in that direction. So that's what I did, and I'm really glad that I did. It's been a long career, and as a dancer, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to keep working the way I did as an actor. Because it's a short career when you're dancing. So, but it did feel the same. It was an artistic endeavor. There's acting involved in dance, and it felt like a natural
So I'm just, a question I had, about when they're recording you,
Yeah.
do they also take film as reference?
Yes.
Is that true for both of you?
Yes, they always recorded the videotapes back in 1992, the sessions, because they were using, the animators would reference them, so there might be a certain way I moved my mouth or gestured that would make it into the drawing somehow. It might not be exactly, in some cases, there were a couple of expressions where my mom said, "Oh, that's you." Especially, I think, when I was mad at the Sultan. I think that might have been one of the ones where my mom recognized me in the drawing. Yeah.
And do you think that being a dancer, that was a bonus for them to have the physicality of Jasmine along?
Well, there was a live action, what do they call the person who does the body work? The reference model? Yes.
Reference model, yeah.
Yes. So that was a different person than me. But I do feel like I was comfortable in my body, so knowing I was being filmed and recording my voice, it didn't throw me in any way.
John, were you playing when you did some of your lines, or?
Yeah, so the cool thing about the sessions, they were photographed in film, I think more for archival usage and reference for animators. But they always had a big box of all the toys next to the music stand and the script and the mic. And so it was interesting when Linda said that Robin Williams would make you laugh and you couldn't make a sound.
Yes.
Because I had to be careful, like, don't hit Buzz's foot on the music stand. You know, like, recording that, that was something, because the mics pick up everything. But yes, they always had, like, so I could pick up Woody and Buzz, and that was so helpful, because that's what Andy's doing, in the film. So that was brilliant that they had those there.
And did you record at the studios, at Disney Studios with Doc Kane and those guys, or?
So I recorded mostly at Pixar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, except when I was in New York, and then what I did record at the Disney Studios was Disney on Ice. I sang "You've Got a Friend in Me," which was really fun. And what I remember from that is I sang it and they said, "Okay, now way louder." Because you have to fill an arena. It's like, oh, okay. So that was like, I sang it, and then, because I've been singing since I was 12, and so they were just like, okay, now fill the arena, like, sing it 5 times louder.
I think there's one question.
Questions, please.
Okay, this is so amazing. Thank you guys for being here. And when you were talking about what you wanted to do as a kid and healing people of some sort, when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was the last scene of Toy Story 3, which healed, like it was healing for everybody who grew up with it. So, and then my question is sort of about the voiceover industry when you were talking about Leah Salonga as a singer.
Yeah.
And so if it's different then and now, like when they're casting somebody, like today would the agent look for a singer first who can do both, or just kind of how does that work in the industry?
Well, I think that it's open now to all those possibilities. So it could be, and often is, someone who doesn't sing because they know that they can seamlessly mix a speaking track with a singing track and really create one character. So I think it's just depending on the part, depending on what specifically they're casting, and if they're looking for a big name or they're looking for a 7-year-old, it just depends project by project. So it's hard to say, but I think before Aladdin, there was no chance if you didn't sing that you would have been able to audition. I don't think I would have even been submitted. They added a song after I was already cast. which is how that happened. And then it changed it for everyone going forward. It wasn't a requirement anymore, so.
Thank you.
Did someone have a question that they got suited?
Last question.
I saw, yes. Hi.
Well, this one is for you, Miss Larkin. Now, as a child, well, when I was 13, I grew up playing this iconic video game called Kingdom Hearts. And you saw that, Agrabah was all a part of the game.
Yeah.
Was it fun to reprise a role as Princess Jasmine, as interacting with the voice actors of Sora, Donald, and Goofy?
Yes, it was so fun. I loved doing the Kingdom Hearts games. It was fantastic. And I did the first two.
Yep.
They were really long recording sessions because there are all kinds of new dialogue, all kinds of places you can go in that world and with those characters. It was really fun. I've never played the game. I've never played it. Everyone who has loves it so much. So I hope to have the opportunity to play it one day, but recording it was great.
Nice.
Thank you.
What an incredible